This is video 2 in the Inkscape series. We're picking up where we left off before. We have here a vectorized deer image that I've pulled in. In the last video we created a DXF out of this and scaled it. So what I want to talk a little bit about now is some of the techniques for joining and modifying your image here. So let me just zoom in here. On the previous video, we noticed that we have an antler here, a tine that is not attached to the rest of the horns. And so that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a cut that's just going to fall off. It's not going to be attached. Okay. So there's a couple ways that you can attach this to bridge that gap, basically. And the first one is going to be the Draw Bezier Curves tool. Now, if I click into this, a couple things about this. When I click with my mouse, I can draw a straight line, basically, with that. Now, and then I can keep going and drawing straight lines each time I click. However, if I click my mouse and hold it down, then I start drawing a curve. And I can manipulate that curve with my handles. Okay? And so when I continue, it still wants to continue the curve. So what I can do is right click and stop. Okay? And I've drawn a curve here. If I want to continue and not have that curve, I can just click back on this node, and now I'm able to draw a straight line off of that original curve. Okay, so I'm going to select that and cut it out. Okay, so how do we use that tool? Well, with the Bezier curve tool, what I can do, let me zoom in here on this tine a little bit closer. Let's say I want to make a nice flowing connection for this. Okay. With my curve tool, I can draw a nice kind of a smooth curve here that matches up with this one right here. And I'm not too concerned. I'm overlaying here. And one of the things that's making it a little bit harder for you to see is, and I want to talk about, is the fill and the stroke. Before I get too far into talking about the Bezier curves, let me zoom out here. Currently, this image has a fill. So there is a fill of black, and the fill and stroke are set down here. Currently, if I click into the, well, I take that back. Right now I have the line I drew selected. You can see it has a stroke of black and a fill of none. And that's shown here. You can see there's a stroke that overlies the line, and the fill is nothing. Whereas it's kind of the opposite for the rest of the image. If I click on the rest of the image, now you'll see I have a fill of black and my stroke's not set. If I click down here, it'll bring up the fill and stroke control, and I can modify those things. For example, if I turn off the fill, my image disappears. Okay, so there's nothing there. The lines are still there, but you can't see them. Okay. However, if I set my stroke and make it a flat color, which is going to be flat black, okay, and then go back and turn off the fill, now you'll see I have an outline. Okay, sometimes this outline is a little easier for you to work with. Okay, it's going to show what's going to happen here a little bit better. Okay, so let me close that for a second. So I've drawn a curve here, as you can see. Now these curves are overlapping each other still. I haven't connected these yet. If I save this as a DXF, SheetCam will see all these curves and it will try to cut all of these curves. So it'll be a big mess here. Okay. So in order to join these together, I can select my curve that I drew. I'm going to hold down the shift button. I'm just going to click on the rest of the object, or the deer head, so the whole thing is selected, or I could have drawn a box around the entire image. Both would have been selected. With them both selected, I can go up under Path and go down to Union, and that's going to join these two together. And voila, simple as that, I've connected that tine to the rest of the antlers. Okay? So that's one way to use the Bezier curve tool. Very useful. So let's go in here and let's start. I want to talk a little bit about modifying these. You can see some of these lines down here, they might pose problems when I'm trying to make a plasma cut, depending on how large I make this image. You know, that might be a very small gap to work with, and you know, likewise this might be a very delicate connection here. You know, I can start modifying these images by simply pulling on these nodes. These little squares are nodes. When you click on a node, it displays the handles. If I click on the handle, I can then manipulate the curve in different ways. Okay, so let's say I'm you know, well, you have to be careful that you don't, let me zoom in here. That if you're going to modify something, you don't actually pull the handle instead of the curve. Because if I do this, grab this curve and then overlap it, SheetCam's going to have a hard time with that. It's not going to understand how to cut that out. So you do have to watch out for those. Okay. Let me zoom out here a second. So when I click on to the Edit Pass tool, I have all these options up here. Now we're going to be not talking about all these all at once, but you're going to want to learn how to use all these and what they all do. It's pretty easy for me to subtract a node. If I select a node, let's say I want to get rid of this section in here. Okay, I can select that node and subtract it. Likewise with this, select it, subtract it. And finally this last one, I'm going to select it and subtract it. And now you can see I got this really weird line right here. Now I don't want to overlap it, so you can see that I have to be careful that I don't twist these up and make them overlap each other like I was mentioning. I'm going to select out that one and I'm going to remove it here. So I've kind of fixed that little area there. Okay, that's one way you can do it. So let me just go up into Edit and I'm going to back up here. And go back to the way we were. Okay. So now let's show you another option for modifying some parts of an image. Let me zoom in here over on this side of the antler. Now let's just say you didn't want that cut down in there. Okay. Another option for modifying would be to simply use the Bezier curve tool and simply draw a curve that, you know, kind of matched up with what you wanted. And then you're going to simply select that curve, hold shift, select the rest of the object. So the whole thing selected, and then union them. And now I've kind of gotten rid of that little cut there. So with artwork, it's really important to modify things and make sure that they're going to cut. You may find that that kerf width just won't fit through this small little slot. You're not going to get the same cut quality you might want. So spending a little time modifying your images can really improve their quality. So that's basically, modifying some of the modification basics. For instance, if I zoom in here, you might say, oh, okay, I want this joined right here. Okay. Well, probably the easiest way to do that would be to draw a curve. And that could be a nice smooth curve. You could go down here and make a curve kind of fit what you want, and then come back and make a curve that kind of matches it, and then you're going to do the same thing. Select it, shift, select the rest of it, then go path, union. Now I've joined that connection and it's nice and smooth. So that's the basics of modifying an image, and it's going to be the end for this video. And in future videos we're going to be discussing some more complicated ways to work with this image and modify it.